stay mad, okay? Stay angry. Don't allow yourself to sink into complacency, all right? Your anger might be politically useful at some point in the future. Some of you may have seen recently that a fresh United Nations climate report came out. The Vox article for this opens with a stunningly beautiful but still somewhat harrowing photo. Northwest Europe. You're not going to give me the country? Just Northwest Europe? Well, 199 people died, so... Damn, it was such a cute little village, too. Germany? Yeah, I heard about the floods in Germany. Oh, wait, you can see language right here. That kind of tells us right there, doesn't it? See? What's that say? Gift of Sebastian? That's probably German. Vina? Well, actually, don't they speak German in a lot of countries in Europe? I don't know. Look, whatever. Moving aside. How much has humanity already changed the climate? And how much worse will it get? The answers are now sharper than ever, according to an international team of scientists. In a new report, they say far more aggressive action is needed to limit catastrophic climate change, and that time is running out. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the United Nations Climate Science Research Group, concluded in a major report that it is unequivocal, that humans have warmed the skies, the waters, the lands, and that widespread and rapid changes have already occurred in every inhabited region across the globe. Many of these changes are irreversible within our lifetimes. There's a lot of doomer stuff here, but we can scroll down to where the meaty information is. And it's right here, with the projected rate of global temperatures rising depending on different outcomes. And it looks like, based on the conclusions in the report, that there is no avoiding that deadly 1.5 degrees Celsius line that we wanted to avoid for so long. That even if we just immediately just do everything we can internationally to fix this problem, we're still going to hit that 1.5 C mark, and the decline from there will be slow. See this, even with very low climate CO2 emissions, by 2100, we're still going to be at about the same temperature that we're at now. This is going to be a centuries-long project to fix if we do everything we can to stop it. But of course, we won't. Any other projection, low, intermediate, high, and very high, puts us well above that ceiling. Very high, putting us all the way up to just below 5 degrees Celsius by 2100, which I'm pretty sure would be literally apocalyptic. 5 degrees Celsius above standard global temperatures. That would essentially be like human civilization becomes unsustainable in most of the world, I'm pretty sure. That would be an extraordinary possibility that could very, very realistically happen. I don't talk about climate change that often, so let's talk about the basics. Who here knows how the greenhouse effect works? Just want to make sure we get the science. Yeah, we paid attention in class. That's not, I like that, okay? I like that, thank you. Basically, it works like this, okay? Earth is a planet. Starting off easy, okay? And like most planets, it's made of stuff. And around that stuff is an atmosphere, which is also a kind of stuff. Now, pretty much all of the energy on Earth is produced by the sun. We get a tiny bit of energy from heat which emanates from our still molten core, but the overwhelming majority, like 99.9%, it comes from radiation from the sun in various bandwidths. There are rays of radiation that are visible to us. They're in the visible light spectrum. There's infrared radiation, which vibrates, which radiates at just the intensity to increase the thermal velocity of the materials it touches, thus heating the planet. And there is, just a whole range. There's also UV energy. Don't get sunburns, kids. If this planet had no atmosphere, it would be very cold. Do you know why? Because all the light would hit Earth, and it would either get absorbed by the dirt, the rock, whatever, or it would bounce off. Now, the dirt, the rock, the oceans, not amazing at absorbing all of the light that comes in. A lot of it just bounces off. That's why the moon's shiny, It just reflects the sun's light. But we do have an atmosphere, and our atmosphere is composed of many different types of substances, some of which are called greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are molecularly structured in a way which makes it easy for them to trap heat. Basically, think of it like, you know, the Breakout game? You know, Breakout game. Used to play it probably as mini games and other larger games where you have a little platform at the bottom and you bounce balls back. Imagine the ball is a photon of radiation from the sun, okay? And that the thing you control, the platform you control, that's the planet, all right? Now, if there were no blocks up here, if there were no blocks, you know, up in the top of the screen, you would bounce off the light and it would just go back off into space, you know, woo! Sometimes it would miss and it would go down, but for the most part, it bounced back off into space. Think of greenhouse gases as the bricks, okay? They, by making the atmosphere more of a mesh weave, more of a net for electromagnetic radiation, they trap light in the atmosphere for longer. Now, what does that do? The longer electromagnetic radiation is trapped in our atmosphere, the more the atmosphere heats up. The more time it spends there, the more opportunities there are for thermal energy to be transferred into the molecules in the air, to bounce back and hit the Earth again, etc., etc., you know? This is one of the reasons why the ozone layer is something we should preserve. Not only does it keep us from getting skin cancer, but it's a sort of outer barrier that reflects a lot of energy from the sun. If there are holes in the ozone layer, more light pours through, potentially more than our atmosphere can safely contain. Now, Earth is kind of a miracle for human life and for the life of other living things. There are like a million factors that if they were changed even slightly, life would not be sustainable. Everything from our position relative to the sun, to the fact that we have seasons because a great celestial body struck the planet a long time ago, to the electromagnetic radiation that hits us, to, the magnetic field that our planet generates shields us from a ton of electromagnetic space radiation. Did you know that? If Earth did not have a largely iron core that through convection constantly generated a big magnetic field, we would be bombarded with radiation and we would not be able to survive. It's like there's a big magnet in the center of the planet and it's churning constantly and it generates this gigantic magnetic belt that actually shields us from a lot of energy. That's true, by the way. It's pretty cool. Yeah, solar flares would obliterate us. If not for that, the radiation would cook us in our skins. But we are protected. There are many systems on Earth that protect us, one of which is an appropriate balance of greenhouse gases, it's carbon dioxide, methane, some others, in our atmosphere. Since the Industrial Revolution, the amounts of carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere have gone up. And it's pretty easy to imagine why. We spew it into the atmosphere. We have industry now. We make things. We have factory smokestacks and cars and planes and everything else, really. And we spew all of these gases into the atmosphere, and it increases the ability for our atmosphere to trap heat. Okay? So do we all understand the science here? Good? Now let's understand the politics. Okay? Right now, as I understand it, the majority of the additional carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is a product of the industrialization of Western countries. We developed first, so we went through our coal, our gasoline, our natural gas. We went through the ascent first. And now, today in America, do you know how popular renewable energy is? Like, in terms of how much it's used relative to other things. Very. No, you're wrong. The answer is very. It is the second most used energy source for electricity generation in this country. It just switched over. I think it beat coal just a couple of years ago. It is the second most popular. That is because the technology for renewable energy generation is getting better and better. It's getting more cheap. It's getting more affordable. The quality of the tech is rocketing up in quality. But here's the thing. It is expensive. America, we could afford it. If we wanted to put a green energy bill together, we could transition our energy production relatively easily. It'd be difficult, but relatively easily. Countries like China and India, nope, not even close. Not only is their population much, much, much higher, but they haven't industrialized to the point that they're capable of sustaining the kind of industry necessary to produce that green energy yet. meaning that they're producing a lot of greenhouse gases right now. And there are many other countries around the world that are in a similar position. Now, here is something that I believe. I think that America and other countries that have already benefited from industrialization should do two things. First, we should massively invest in our own green energy, obviously. And second, we should pay developing countries to do the same. There's a little bit of unfairness here. And the unfairness is that we, the developed countries, got the opportunity to industrialize before climate change became a real problem. We were industrializing through the late 1800s. I mean, before we even knew, we did a lot of work before it became a global problem. And we kept doing it even after we knew, too. Other countries weren't as lucky, but we all need to industrialize, and we all need to prevent the spread of greenhouse gases. So, we should pay them. Is that fair? I don't know. Is that reasonable? I really don't care. It is necessary for the survival of the human race that we do this. I do not care. I don't care if it bankrupts this country. I don't care if my living standards goes down. I literally do not care. This is a all hands on deck situation. I do not care. I just don't. Okay, I do not care. If some people are going to see that this, why are we paying China? I do not care. If you want to, after we deal with climate change and we're all getting our energy from green energy, you can whine and moan about it. You can say they want to pay us reparations. You can say, oh, that you owe us $8 trillion for everything we invested. I don't care. You can go back to that if you want. But we literally do not have the room to complain about this right now. Think of every fantasy novel you have ever read. Think of all of the, factions coming together at the end because the alternative is being destroyed by orcs or space aliens or whatever. This is not a position where can argue over the semantics. Fairness doesn't come into this. This is survival, okay? I mean, a lot of climate change also depends on China, unfortunately. Yeah, we'll pay them. I don't care. I'll pay them. I'll pay China. I'll mail them a check, okay? It is necessary that we do this. It is excessively necessary that we do this, okay? 100% excessively, overwhelmingly necessary that we do this, okay? There is no getting around that because the consequences to unchecked climate change it will annihilate the planet, okay? It genuinely will, at least for human survival, okay? There is so much that goes into this. You have no idea. You can't even begin to fathom. Already, climate events are worsening, both in frequency and severity. Do you know what's going to happen to the composition of our atmosphere when the plankton die, when the oceans boil? Do you have any idea what will happen to the global supply chain of life and death when fish start to die in the oceans because the plankton are no longer there to feed them? Do you know what's going to happen to our coral reefs, or what's already happened, I should say, to our coral reefs? Do you know what's going to happen when the sea level rises and coastal communities containing hundreds of thousands of people are no longer inhabitable and they start to move inland, desperately trying to survive and clash against the borders of more developed countries that are going to gun them down and dump them in mass graves at the border, causing unbelievable global strife and conflict? Do you know what's going to happen when fresh water becomes harder to get a hold of? Do you know what's going to happen when arable land becomes more difficult to till? This is literally an end time scenario. We need to handle it. Simple as that. And this brings me to my final political prescription. I am authoritarian pilled on climate change. I'll just say it. I don't care if this wilters my reputation somewhat. When it comes to the people responsible for propagating misinformation on climate change, or the people who callously resist the means by which we would improve things, I am literally okay with state intervention. I'm okay with all these people being tried to the Hague. Guys, eco-fash doesn't mean what you think it means. Eco-fash means attempting to deal with climate change by sanctioning and killing people in developing countries. That's not at all what I'm talking about, you fucking morons. I wish maybe we should talk about this more like an allegory, you know? Imagine if there was an alien race, okay? It was just alien people, all right? And what happened was they need resources, okay? So they have a big mothership up in orbit, and they arrive at an agreement with our leaders, okay? They talk to UN representatives, and they get an agreement. And the agreement they get is that the UN representatives get a lot of cool alien tech, you know, that'll help them. Not really everyone, but it'll help them. And the aliens get to siphon off the atmosphere, which will eventually kill everyone. They get to siphon off the atmosphere. They get to siphon off our water. They get to take everything. They get with a tractor beam. I don't know. Okay, now I have to ask you, if with the knowledge that the Earth was literally just decades away from annihilation, would you be at all sated by the knowledge that they had arrived at their trade agreement legally? Like, if you were like, we need to do something about that ship, and someone else was like, well, they did sign a treaty, it is legal for them to do this, would you be in any way convinced? No, I wouldn't either. Well, that's the situation we're in, except instead of aliens, it's, politicians and corporate, so on. Now, far be it from me to suggest anything illegal. I love the law. So I'll speak within the bounds of the law, and I'll simply say that I would be okay with desperately and despicably aggressive action against people who spread climate misinformation from the government. I would be okay with special courts being set up for it. I would be okay with entire sets of legal precedent being established for the specific purpose of disempowering and arresting those people. And I think what they are doing is a crime against humanity. Okay? You can Pepe post all you want, but guys, in 50 years, when our grocery stores are having their resources rationed and people are being careful about their water consumption because the dams aren't refilling and the water reservoirs have run dry, do you think anyone is going to be convinced by, well, at least we preserved the free speech of multimillionaire hedge fund managers, media CEOs, and politicians who knew they were lying and discussed the fact that they were lying through backroom deals but never acknowledged it publicly? Do you, in the future, do you really think our children and our grandchildren will thank us for our abstemiousness on this issue? No, none of them will. And I do not think there is any political right today that outweighs the survival of the species. Seriously, I don't think there's any. From a purely consequentialist perspective, the consequences of climate change are so severe that potentially almost anything could be justified as a way of preventing it. But thankfully, we don't have to go on some holy crusade against half the population. We literally just have to rein in politicians and business managers. That would do an unbelievable amount of good. That's not what consequentialism means, but okay. Actually, that is what it means. And by the way, I'm going to bring this right around tail, okay? I think that what I am describing right now is a pro-freedom stance. Because by allowing people today to recklessly abuse a tiny sliver of a fraction of their right to free speech, they're trading away the lives of the human species a few generations down the line. In what other context would this be acceptable? What if people were lying about the results of studies that found that, drugs they were selling to everyone resulted in infertility and genetic defects, 50 years down the line? The lawsuits and the trials and the arrests would be overwhelming. They would be sued for billions if it turned out that some super popular drug was being sold everywhere and the people who sold it knew that it meant there would be genetic defects 50 years, 60 years, 70 years down the line. They lied about it. Unless it was a pharmaceutical company. Yeah, maybe I'm being a little bit optimistic because that did happen with cigarettes. Okay, a better example would be, because at least you have to make the choice. You have to make the choice to take a drug. Whereas with climate change, everyone gets affected whether or not you take the drug. What if, I don't know, chemtrails, something. I don't know. This is a pro-free speech position. Because you can't have free speech if you're dead. And people in the future will not survive the free speech of people today. The fact that we've reached this point is disgusting. We could ask meaningful questions that would really challenge people's values, you know? What would you be willing to abandon? Democracy? Can we survive democracy? Can you take anything and everything away if it meant you could prevent the worst effects of climate change. We're dealing with the worst possible outcomes here. We're dealing with a trolley problem that describes the population of the human species, okay? We're dealing with the worst possible scenario. So, at the very least, we should be willing to consider charges for crimes against humanity to people responsible for pushing misinformation on this. I mean, that's at least, like, that seems to me like an easy step, like a very, very immediate ballpark. Whatever. Yes, but it'll never happen. Yeah, well, Vosh, that's BS. You're saying you're for freedom, yet you want to disregard freedom of speech. If you use your freedom of speech to strip the entire human race of their freedoms a generation down the line, then you're violating other people's freedoms. It's like using your freedom of speech to, like, call a hitman. Except you're calling a hitman on the whole planet, okay? You're violating other people's freedoms. The Supreme Court agrees with you, by the way. They were okay with knowledge about nuclear weapons to be punished because you can't have free speech if we're all dead from nuclear war. Yeah. Again, like, freedom of speech only exists insofar as there are people to exercise it and institutions to defend it. And neither people nor institutions will survive the worst effects of climate change. Is there anything we can do to help alleviate the effects of climate change? I don't know. Take shorter showers or whatever. I don't know. What matters the most is don't subscribe to climate doomerism, okay? Nothing is less productive than doomerism. When I see people online and they're like, "Oh, we're already fucked, whatever." Don't stay mad. Okay? Stay angry. There have been plenty of populations that have been fucking doomed and they stayed angry, okay? Don't allow yourself to sink into complacency, all right? Your anger might be politically useful at some point in the future. Unironically, aren't the doomers correct, though? Like, we're super fucked? Listen up, okay? When the history books wrote on the legacy of the Spartans at Thermopylae, okay? Did the history books say, "Oh, yeah, King Leonidas went there to the pass, and he was like, oh, dude, we're super fucked. The Persian army we're so much bigger than us. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, we're doomed. Okay." And then all the Spartans just sort of, just kind of, whatever, you know? No! It doesn't matter what the odds are. Doomerism is unproductive. You have no idea what potential good you can do by maintaining a decisive and active attitude. Okay? You're all like the Spartans, okay? You all got, like, abs and stuff. The Spartans lost that war. Yeah, well, history remembers them as winning that battle, so shut up. Also, didn't they win that war? Like, eventually? Won the war, lost the battle? Yeah, the war, not the battle. Yeah, I'm saying the war. Yeah, I just would have... All the people who are dooming in chat never would have joined the French resistance. I'll say that much, okay? You guys would be like, dude, whatever. The Nazi war machine just took over my country, dude. Like, the Holocaust is happening. What? Okay. Whatever. You know? it's just not productive. Because I can't provide therapy to all the climate doomers in chat. I'm sorry.